All right, so the big story throughout the week we just finished started with the Commonwealth Business Forum. And of course, part of that was the Commonwealth Head of States meeting. That was all in the news. Then in the same week, we had the World Bank IMF 2018 spring meeting. So let's start this conversation with the Commonwealth Business Forum. And the key story, we're trying to track that last week. I went on Twitter over the weekend saying that we had quite a decent number of Nigeria's cabinet and non-cabinet members. We have the finance minister and a few others, the central bank chief. We've had a few legislators, which include the Senate president. His team also tweeted that Dr. Bukola Saraki would also be in Washington for some of the meetings on the sidelines, meeting investors and talking to them. Then you got some stories about His Royal Majesty, the Emir of Kano, Lamido Sanusi, saying one of the events was late in starting. The Nigerian bigwigs were not there to meet the foreign investors on time, started 1 hour behind schedule, and the whole social media was really hot over the weekend. So we tried to unpack some of this with Professor Uwaleke, who is the Associate Professor of Finance at the Nasarawa State University. Is live to us from our Abuja studios. Good morning. It's good to have you on the program. Let's start with the Commonwealth heads of governments and the business forum. Reading the news and the media, whatever, what are your takeaways? What are your thoughts on how well we performed today? Not just the president, but a few of his men who were there.
Yeah, thank you, Boston. Let me start by saying, yes, two big events happening almost at the same time. The CHOGM as well as the IMF World Bank spring meetings. Of course, that was not intentional. If you recall, CHOGM was originally scheduled to hold in a small island called Vanuatu after the last CHOGM meeting in Malta, 2015. Of course, you know, it's a biannual event that takes place every 2 years. So the last one was in Malta in 2015, and the next one would have been in Vanuatu, a small island located in South Pacific Ocean. But due to cyclone, natural disaster, it was shifted to London. So that's why we had this, the two events coinciding, and we saw top government officials, top businessmen shuttling between London and Washington. Yes, of course, if you look at the numbers that are involved, 53 countries of Commonwealth, 2.4 billion population, and combined GDP of about 13 trillion. You'll agree with me that it's an opportunity to showcase the potentials of the country. It's an opportunity, to blow your trumpet in that kind of summit, and that's why, if you look at the key goals of the summit. 4 of them principally. One of them is prosperity, which is emphasizing trade, promoting intra-Commonwealth trade that has been in the region of over $500 billion to estimated to hit over 1 trillion, by 2020. So promotion of trade, was one. The other two happens to be security. Of course, there was a declaration on cybercrime at the CHOGM. There was also the issue of fairness that has to do with democracy and good governance among Commonwealth countries. And that was why too that there was a revised guideline that was adopted by member countries on election observation and monitoring in Commonwealth countries. And then, of course, sustainability, that talks about building the resilience of smaller countries in dealing with challenges such as climate changes and as well as refugee crisis. So these were the major goals at that conference. But the chief of them happens to be trade. Trade, of course, not surprising. This is the first CHOGM after Britain voted to pull out of the European Union. So there was the need to recover some lost grounds, trade volumes in the European Union, to recover them by way of increasing the trade with the among Commonwealth countries. So it's also the first since 1997, and that was why it was particularly of importance to London. Well, for us in Nigeria,
Professor Uwaleke,
the president was there. We listened to his keynote address.
Professor, Professor, just before you go in there, and we thank you very much for giving us a bit of a background of that. But I just want us to piggyback a little bit. When we say Commonwealth, 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, that word resonates on the streets of Nigeria, in schools, across everywhere, when we say Commonwealth, and everybody believes Nigeria is a major part of the Commonwealth. Are we still a major part of the Commonwealth? Does the word Commonwealth still resonate on the streets of Nigeria anymore?
Well, I think so. The whole Commonwealth thing started as far back as 1971. And in terms of these meetings that, create awareness, sensitization about the programs of CHOGM, as I said, they have had like 24 since then. And this sensitization is usually very pronounced about the time every year that we usually have CHOGM. No doubt Nigeria is one of the prominent members of CHOGM, and that also explains why the president had an audience with Theresa May even ahead of the meeting. So the biggest economy in Africa, cannot be looked down on when it comes to a committee of Commonwealth countries. So I think it still resonates. It's just that because we don't hear the Commonwealth meetings are twice every other 2 years, as opposed to that of the World Bank that is biannual, is twice a year. You have one in spring and you have one in autumn around October. It is only when we get to hear CHOGM that we begin to talk about CHOGM. And again, the fact that Nigeria has not been in the picture in terms of hosting CHOGM is also a factor. Maybe that's also what should be thinking about. When will Nigeria bid for hosting rights of CHOGM? That will also further put Nigeria in the limelight.
That's nicely put, but again, you were stepping earlier into the conversation around the President Buhari's speech at the last the meeting last week, and